The Boy Who Became Legend. The Untold Story of Audie Murphy. The 26th of January 1945. Holtzwihr, France. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Snow covers everything. The cold burns exposed skin. A 19-year-old stands in a shallow ditch. Telephone pressed against his ear. Behind him, the forest holds what remains of his company. 40 men. That's all that's left. Through the white haze, shapes emerge. 6 German tanks. 250 infantry. White winter camouflage makes them ghosts against the snow. They're coming straight at him. Artillery shells whisper overhead before they scream. The ground trembles. Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy orders his men to withdraw to prepared positions in the woods. But he remains forward at his command post. He stays on the telephone, calling coordinates, directing artillery fire. A tank destroyer behind him takes a direct hit. Metal shreds. Fire erupts. The crew abandons the vehicle, running for the trees. The burning tank destroyer sits there, ammunition cooking off, in danger of exploding at any moment. German infantry advances. Closer, 50 yards. 40. Murphy climbs onto the burning tank destroyer. He mounts the 50 caliber machine gun. Alone. Exposed to enemy fire from 3 sides. For the next hour, this baby-faced kid from Texas will stand on top of a vehicle that could explode beneath him at any second, firing into waves of advancing German soldiers. They will try everything to kill him. They will fail. This is the moment that will define Audie Murphy's legend. But this is not where his story begins. The sharecropper's son. Audie Leon Murphy was born in Kingston, Texas, to Emmett Berry and Josie Belle Murphy. His parents were poor sharecroppers. The year was 1925. Murphy was the 6th of 12 children, 9 of whom survived until the age of 18. The house wasn't really a house. It was a shack. They had no radios, books, magazines, or amusements for the children. The kind of poverty that the Murphys lived in was the kind of poverty that sends kids into the streets or into neighbors' homes to find something to do. Murphy went to school in Celeste until the 8th grade, when he dropped out to help support his family, working for $1 a day, plowing and picking cotton. His hands learned calluses before they learned algebra. Growing up, Audie picked cotton and also became a very skilled hunter. He first started hunting with a slingshot, then became an expert with a rifle. Audie also hunted small game to help feed the family. A neighbor once watched him hunt. Never missed. Murphy explained it simply. If he didn't hit what he shot at, his family wouldn't eat that day. Every bullet had to count. There was no room for waste, no room for error. This skill learned from desperation would later save his life and the lives of hundreds of others. When he was 10 years old, his father left his mother and turned his back on the family. Emmett Murphy simply disappeared. 12 children. No support. No explanation. When Audie turned 12, his mother decided he could quit school and become the head of the family. 12 years old. Head of the family. At age 16, he was working in a radio repair shop when his mother died on the 23rd of May 1941. Josie Belle Murphy had been the thread holding everything together. When she died, that thread snapped. As a result of his mother's death, his 3 youngest siblings were placed in an orphanage. Murphy stood at the orphanage, watching his brothers and sisters being taken inside. He made a promise that day. He would come back for them. He would give them a home. He would become someone. He needed to escape. He needed purpose. He needed war. Rejected. The 7th of December, 1941, Pearl Harbor. The Japanese attack changes everything. Young men across America rush to recruiting stations. Audie Murphy among them. He's 16 years old, though he tells them he's 18. Standing only 5 feet, 5 inches tall, and weighing just 110 pounds, he was rejected by Marine Corps and Army airborne recruiters. Too small, too young, too weak. The Marines don't want him. The Navy doesn't want him. The Army paratroopers laugh him out of the office. Murphy goes home devastated, but not defeated. On the advice of one of the recruiters, he went home and spent the next few months gaining weight with bananas and milk. He eats. He lifts. He returns. Then, Brandishing a letter from his sister, attesting to his age as being 18, Audie presented himself to recruiters in Dallas and was accepted into the Army on the 30th of June, 1942. He's 17 years old, still underweight, still undersized. But he's in. The Army doesn't expect much from him. His company commander tries to transfer him to cook school. Too small for combat, they say. Too frail for the infantry. Murphy refuses. He wants to fight. Not cook. Not file paperwork. Fight. Basic training at Camp Wolters, Texas. Advanced training at Fort Meade, Maryland. Then deployment. Murphy was assigned to the famous 15th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division, where he fought in North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany. Nobody knows it yet, but this undersized kid from Texas is about to become the most lethal soldier in American military history. Baptism by fire. Sicily, the 10th of July, 1943. His first combat action was the landing on Sicily, Operation Husky. Here, he contracted malaria, which led to several hospital stays. The fighting is brutal. Close quarters, house to house. Murphy learns quickly. Hesitation kills you. He became keenly interested in military matters after listening to stories related to him by two uncles who had soldiered in France in 1918. And the boy often told friends that he wanted to enlist. But stories don't prepare you for reality. Reality is louder. Messier, Mort Permanent, Italy. The campaigns rage. Salerno, Anzio, Monte Cassino. The enemy pursued them, but were halted by American fire, which killed 3 men and caused the others to surrender. The action gained Murphy 3 stripes. He's promoted to sergeant. Still a teenager. The dowdy little Texan was never far from the front, and became well known for enthusiastically venturing out alone to stalk and kill Germans wherever he could find them. He won his first Bronze Star for leading a night patrol to destroy with rifle grenades and Molotov cocktails a damaged German tank, which its crew was striving to repair. Murphy develops a reputation. He doesn't hesitate. While other soldiers fire over the enemy's heads, studies will later show many soldiers never aim to kill. But Murphy aims center mass. Every time. Audie was the consummate infantryman. He handled small arms with assurance, and, unlike many citizen soldiers, did not hesitate to kill the enemy. But killing changes you. Murphy starts to isolate himself. The loss of comrades affected him deeply, and he resisted forging close relationships with their successors. He was perceived as a soldier fighting a war of his own. Audie was also growing embittered. He writes in his journal, "So many men have come and gone that I can no longer keep track of them. I have isolated myself as much as possible, desiring only to do my work and be left alone. I feel burnt out, emotionally and physically exhausted." He keeps fighting anyway. The Lone Wolf, France. August 1944. Operation Dragoon. The Allied invasion of southern France. In August 1944, Audie participated in the first Allied invasion of southern France. He and his platoon were attacked by Germans. He found a machine gun and fired on the Germans. The Germans fake a surrender. Murphy's best friend responds, moving forward to accept their capitulation. They shoot him, kill him instantly. Murphy watches his friend die. Murphy advanced alone on the house, under direct fire. Rage replaces fear. He storms the position, takes prisoners. For this he earned the Army Distinguished Service Cross. The 2nd of October 1944. Lomé Quarry, France. During the fighting around Clery, on the 2nd of October 1944, Audie unwittingly led a patrol into a German ambush. The GIs were pinned down by severe fire, so Murphy crawled around to a flank and charged alone against the enemy. Alone. Always alone. The first Silver Star was earned on October 2nd, 1944, after killing and wounding 7 German machine gun operators at the Lomé Quarry in France during World War II. 3 days later, another Silver Star. Murphy is 19 years old, already carrying more medals than officers twice his age. He receives a battlefield commission. Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy. The promotion doesn't change anything. He's still out front, still taking the risks. Let the hill be strewn with corpses. so long as I do not have to turn over the bodies and find the familiar face of a friend. By January 1945, Murphy has been wounded twice. Shrapnel in his leg, bullet in the hip, Purple Hearts. He barely acknowledges them. There's still fighting to do. The stand, back to that snow-covered field, the 26th of January, 1945. Murphy had made the most of what was available, but was informed that his reinforcements had not yet arrived, and they wouldn't make it that day. Company B is under strength, decimated. With the exception of Lieutenant Murphy, all the officers were killed, and 102 of the company's 120 enlisted men were either killed or wounded before they even reached their assigned position. They've penetrated into the Bois de Redevere forest. The village of Holtzwihr sits ahead, heavily fortified. German armor, elite mountain troops. At 2 p.m. that day, 6 tanks and 250 elite German mountain troops moved out of the village toward their position. Artillery announces them. Then the tanks emerge through the white landscape. Murphy knew German armor would have to advance along the roadway. They're coming straight at his position. Murphy recognized the importance of holding the road at all costs. If the Germans break through here, they'll flank the entire division. Thousands of American lives depend on this position holding. 2 American tank destroyers opened fire. Once the enemy came within range, Tardy's tank destroyers opened fire. Unfortunately, their 90mm shells bounced harmlessly off the steel sides of the oncoming German armor. The rounds just bounce off. German tanks keep advancing. Then, the rear tank destroyer was hit by an 88mm shell that pierced its thin armor and killed the commander and gunner. The surviving crew members scurried out and retreated into the woods. The vehicle burns. Ammunition inside begins to cook off. Black smoke rises into the gray sky. Murphy stays on the phone, calling artillery coordinates, adjusting fire. The Germans are close now. Too close. A makes a decision. With the enemy tanks abreast of his position, Murphy climbed on the burning tank destroyer, which was in danger of blowing up at any moment, and employed its 50 caliber machine gun against the enemy. The 50 caliber roars to life. Massive rounds tear through winter air. Murphy stands completely exposed. He was alone and exposed to German fire from 3 sides, but his deadly fire killed dozens of Germans and caused their infantry attack to waver. He's standing on a bomb. The tank destroyer could explode any second. Flames lick around the turret. Smoke chokes him. Germans fire from 3 directions. Bullets snap past his head. Artillery explodes nearby. Snow turns red. Murphy doesn't move. His phone still connects to artillery command. He cradles the receiver against his shoulder while firing the 50 caliber with both hands, calling coordinates between bursts. Adjusting fire, killing Germans. 50 yards out, a German squad tries to flank him through a drainage ditch. Murphy spots them. Pivots. The 50 caliber cuts them down. All of them. The German infantry wavers. Stalls. The attack loses momentum. For an hour, the Germans tried every available weapon to eliminate Lieutenant Murphy. But he continued to hold his position. 1 hour. 60 minutes. Standing on burning metal, holding off an entire company. From Murphy's exposed position on top of the burning tank destroyer, he killed over 20 German soldiers and repelled their attack. He killed and wounded upwards of 50 German soldiers. Finally, the machine gun runs dry. Out of ammunition, Murphy steps down from the burning vehicle. His legs are wounded, he doesn't remember when. He left the tank destroyer and rejoined his men in the relative safety of the forest. After he reached the tree line, the turret on which he stood for that entire hour blew up, tossing it sky high. Seconds. He had seconds to spare. He returned to his men once his gun was out of fire and ordered them forward. He then continued to serve with them while his legs were being treated. Refusing evacuation, Murphy leads a counterattack. They retake the position. Company B held its ground throughout that night, and the reinforced 30th Infantry Regiment captured the village the next day. The German offensive in the Colmar pocket collapses. The last major Nazi foothold in France falls. Had Murphy not made his stand atop the burning armored vehicle, it's likely the entire company, undermanned and demoralized, would have been annihilated. The medal, the 2nd of June, 1945. an airfield near Werfen, Austria. Lieutenant General Alexander M. Patch III presented the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration, given for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. Though Murphy's heroism on January 26 was extraordinary, it was not the first time Murphy had distinguished himself. He had previously received over 20 awards for valor. Among his 33 awards and decorations was the Medal of Honor, the highest military award for bravery that can be given to any individual in the United States of America. He also received every other valor decoration America offered. He also received recognitions from France and Belgium. Murphy was credited with destroying 6 tanks, in addition to killing over 240 German soldiers, and wounding and capturing many others. At 19 years old, he was the most decorated American soldier of World War II. The Army promotes him to first lieutenant. They pull him from the front lines, make him a liaison officer. The war in Europe ends. Murphy returns to Texas. Life magazine puts him on the cover. The 16th of July, 1945, baby-faced. Medal of Honor around his neck. America's hero. The boy from the sharecropper's shack who became a legend. Actor James Cagney sees the magazine, calls Murphy, invites him to Hollywood. A new chapter begins. But the war doesn't end. Not for Murphy. It never ends. The Hidden War. Hollywood, 1945 to 1971. Murphy arrives in California with nothing but his uniform and his medals. After years of hardship, struggle to find work and sleeping in a local gymnasium, Murphy finally received token roles in his first 2 films. Success doesn't come easily, but eventually, it comes. In 1950, he received a contract with Universal International. He starred in 26 films over the next 15 years, 23 of which were westerns. Good looks, natural screen presence, box office draw. Murphy publishes his autobiography, To Hell and Back. The book quickly became a national bestseller, and in 1955, after much inner debate, he decided to portray himself in the film version of his book. Murphy plays himself, relives the war on screen. The movie was a hit and held Universal Studios record as its highest-grossing motion picture until 1975. The role meant reenacting traumatic moments from his time in combat, including Murphy's best friend dying in his arms, cameras rolling, explosions, gunfire. Murphy recalled being terrified while acting in 1951's The Red Badge of Courage, as the film's Civil War battle scenes reminded him of his wartime experiences and left him trembling. The public sees a movie star. They see success, confidence. The American dream realized. They don't see what happens when the cameras stop. Audie Murphy suffered from what is known today as post-traumatic stress disorder. He was plagued for years by insomnia and depression. He suffered from night terrors, slept with a gun under his pillow, and self-medicated with sleeping pills, to which he would become addicted. Actor David Niven lived near Murphy for a time. Niven recorded in his biography that not only would Murphy sleep with a loaded gun next to him, but would occasionally wake up startled fellow actors by firing off a round when he himself woke up. Murphy couldn't sleep in a bedroom. Too confined, too vulnerable. He slept in his garage with the lights on, loaded pistol within reach, every night. For years. The nightmares never stopped. Combat replayed in his mind. Friends dying, Germans advancing, the burning tank destroyer, over and over. But, unlike most veterans of his era, Murphy refused to stay silent. Unlike most during that time, he chose to speak out about his experiences and struggles with PTSD, known as battle fatigue at the time. He called out the USC government to look closer at and study the emotional impacts of war, and urged them to extend health benefits to address PTSD and other mental health issues of returning war veterans. He testified before Congress, advocated for veterans' mental health treatment, spoke publicly about his sleeping pill addiction, his depression, his struggles. Smith said Murphy was already suffering from PTSD on V-Day, the day World War II ended in Europe. Murphy, who was in Cannes, France, could hear people celebrating in the streets below his hotel. Everyone celebrating. Murphy, alone in his room, unable to feel anything but emptiness. It was a condition which at the time was little understood, and for the treatment of which there was almost no help available. It plagued him the rest of his life. He married twice. First to actress Wanda Hendricks in 1949. The marriage lasted barely a year. He married again in 1951, this time to Pamela Archer, with whom he had 2 children. He tried to be a father, a husband, normal. But combat doesn't make you normal. It makes you something else. Murphy also became a successful songwriter. In addition to acting, he became a successful country music songwriter, and many of his songs were recorded by well-known artists, including Dean Martin, Jerry Wallace, and Harry Nilsson. Poetry helped. Writing helped. But nothing truly healed. In his later years, Murphy squandered his fortune on gambling and bad investments, and was in financial ruin when he died. Millions earned, millions lost. He filed for bankruptcy. The most decorated soldier in American history broke. The final mission. The 28th of May 1971. A Friday. Memorial Day weekend approaching. Murphy boards a private plane near Roanoke, Virginia. Business trip. Routine flight. Tragedy struck, and he died in a plane crash. The plane crashed near Brush Mountain in Virginia. Dense fog. Zero visibility. Rain. The pilot, experienced but without instrument rating, flies into the mountain. On 28 May 1971, Murphy was killed when the private plane, in which he was a passenger, crashed into Brush Mountain near Catawba, Virginia, 20 miles west of Roanoke, in conditions of rain, clouds, fog, and zero visibility. All 6 people aboard, killed instantly. Audie Murphy was 45 years old. Murphy, one of the most decorated American combat soldiers of World War II, was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. He was 45 years old. Full military honors. On 7 June 1971, Murphy was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. His grave sits near the amphitheater. Simple white headstone. On his expressed wish during his lifetime, his gravestone was not as is customary for Medal of Honor recipients decorated with gold leaf, but kept in simple white. No gold, no embellishment. Just his name, his rank, his dates. That grave became the second most visited site at Arlington. Only President Kennedy's grave receives more visitors. People come, they stand, they remember, year after year, decade after decade. The reckoning. Look at the arc of this life. A boy so poor he hunted to keep his family alive. Too small for the military. Rejected 3 times. Finally accepted, then almost transferred to cook school because he looked too weak for combat. That same boy became the most lethal soldier America ever produced. Credited with both killing over 240 of the enemy, while wounding and capturing many others, he became a legend within the 3rd Infantry Division. Every Valor Medal his country could give. Battlefield Commission. National Hero at 19. Hollywood star. Best-selling author. Box office success spanning 2 decades. Millions of dollars. Fame. Recognition. Everything poverty promised would never be his. Yet Murphy spent his final years financially ruined. Addicted to sleeping pills. Haunted by nightmares. Unable to escape the war that made him famous. The trauma that no amount of medals could cure. On the one hand, he wins all of these medals, he wins every award for valor the Army can give, he becomes a celebrity, he becomes nationally known, and he becomes a movie star. That's what his wartime experience did for him. But the flip side of that is, his wartime experience scarred him for life with post-traumatic stress disorder, and he had to live out the rest of his life as this Hollywood movie star, a really popular one in the 50s. All the while, he was bearing these psychological scars of his combat. Today, we have language for what Murphy experienced. PTSD, treatment options, support systems, research, understanding. In Murphy's time, they called it battle fatigue, or shell shock, and told men to get over it. He didn't get any help. because nobody got any help. He is of a generation that doesn't talk about itself. He is from a humble generation that doesn't like to use the word I. He didn't like to draw attention to himself, and men deal with their problems themselves. But Murphy did speak out, despite the stigma, despite his generation's silence. He testified before Congress. He advocated for veterans. He talked openly about his struggles, when doing so was considered weakness. The U.S. Army has always declared that there will never be another Audie Murphy. They're right. Not just because modern warfare has changed, not just because of his unprecedented medal count, but because Murphy represents something unique, the collision of extraordinary courage with extraordinary vulnerability. He proved that heroes bleed, that bravery has a cost, that standing on that burning tank destroyer and facing down 250 German soldiers doesn't make you invincible. It makes you human, deeply, tragically human. The legacy. Return to that moment, the 26th of January, 1945. The burning tank destroyer, the snow, the German advance. Why did Murphy climb onto that vehicle? Years later, someone asked him. His answer was simple. They were killing my friends. Not for glory, not for medals, not for recognition, for his friends, the men he served with, the brothers in arms he'd already lost too many of. 30 May 1996. Texas Congressman Ralph Hall commemorated the 25th anniversary of Murphy's death by reading, "In memory of Major Audie L. Murphy and Murphy's poems," into the congressional record. The Audie Murphy American Cotton Museum in Greenville, Texas, documents the history of Hunt County with special emphasis on the impact of the cotton industry and the stories of county residents who served with honor in the military, especially Audie Murphy. Schools bear his name. Military units honor him. The Sergeant Audie Murphy clubs on military bases honor his contributions. Memorials stand in France, where his one-man stand saved an American company and changed the course of the Colmar offensive. But perhaps Murphy's greatest legacy isn't the medals. It's the conversation he started. About PTSD, about the cost of combat, about what we owe to those we send to war. He showed that you can be both the toughest soldier and the most vulnerable human. That standing alone on a burning tank destroyer doesn't make you impervious to nightmares. That killing 240 enemy soldiers doesn't mean you sleep peacefully afterward. Heroes aren't invincible. They're people who do impossible things despite being terrified, despite being scarred, despite knowing the cost. Murphy knew the cost. He paid it. He kept paying it until a foggy morning in Virginia, 26 years after the war ended, but never really ended. That boy from the sharecropper's shack. Too small, too poor, too young, he became the most decorated American soldier in history, and he became a man haunted by everything that made him legendary. Stand at his grave in Arlington, the simple white stone, second most visited site in the cemetery. People still come, still remember. They remember the valor, the courage, the impossible stand. They should also remember the nightmares, the sleeping pills, the loaded gun under the pillow, because that's the complete story, the real story. The boy who became a legend, the legend who remained a haunted man, the hero who never stopped fighting, even when the war was over. Audie Murphy, 1925 to 1971. Remember the glory, remember the cost. Both are true, both matter, both are his legacy.